Peter Khalil is the Prime Minister's Special Envoy for Social Cohesion and the member for Wills, and he's on the phone. Mr. Khalil, thank you very much for your time.
Morning, Justin. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. Has Melbourne become a more dangerous place for some communities?
Look, I think that certainly the Jewish Australian community has felt the rise in anti-Semitism, which has been significant. I think some of the reporting is around over 300% increase. And then, of course, more recently, we've seen these escalated incidents, the arson attacks, but also the terrorist attack on a synagogue. So there's deep distress within large parts of the community. And I think it is incumbent upon governments and the community more broadly to support them through this distressing period and provide the security necessary for synagogues and schools and community centres, but also the law enforcement task force that's been set up to actually follow through and bring perpetrators to justice.
Yeah, I mean, you heard that call from John before from North Caulfield. He said that we're talking ourselves down and that we are using things are being stirred up by certain people. Would you agree with that, or is what we're feeling real?
Every individual's experience obviously is different. I think there is a general, there's this fair degree of evidence around the feeling and the incidents that the Jewish Australian community has experienced with anti-Semitism. I would say a couple of points though that John is right. Protest is a fundamental democratic right of every Australian citizen, and people should have the right to protest freely. And express themselves freely, as long as that's done peacefully and respectfully. And the vast majority of protests have been conducted peacefully and respectfully. Where there are incidents that cross over into hate speech or vilification or even violence or attacks on people based on their faith or their identity, that is not just unacceptable, it is illegal, and that it should be dealt with by the law, because what we don't want to see in our communities is any expression of hatreds towards others that crosses over into that violence or that hate speech. And we want to see a socially cohesive society, and that is dependent on people being able to manage and navigate their difference and disagreement and express their views without crossing over into forms of violence.
Look, well, have we changed the way that we argue with each other in the last few years, whether it be politically, whether it's over religion, whether we're discussing the environment or energy or whatever? Have we changed the way that we talk to each other? Have we become more divided?
Look, I'm concerned about that, Justin. I think you're right on that point, because there has been greater polarisation in our communities, obviously exacerbated by, there's great advantages to access to digital technologies and social media, but certainly some of them can exacerbate division and discord, push people into pockets of difference. And when you're in different sets of reality, it's very hard to actually engage with someone, even if you disagree and have division. But the key point I would make to people is that every time an individual actually reaches out to someone who they have great difference with and division or disagreement with, but they do it, navigate that peacefully and respectfully, they're adding to social cohesion. Our community, our multicultural, multi-faith, multi-ethnic society, which has been relatively harmonious, has succeeded, yes, because governments have been bipartisan in their support, but also because of the good faith and the commitment of generations of Australians. And I think most Australians want to keep it that way. And we're a pretty fair bunch of Australians. People can have their views as long as they don't get violent with those views.
Yeah, we are. But have we forgotten how to debate each other?
Well, one could argue
kind of like we used to.
Yeah, well, to disagree peacefully, I think, is a skill. And this role that I have as Special Envoy for Social Cohesion, part of what I'm looking at is not just to mitigate the risks and challenges to our harmonious society, but where we can uplift that resilience of communities to engage with each other, build up those skills. This is not something that you just have automatically. It's also learned through modelling of behaviours, through a normative framework. Look, the government can do certain things, Justin. They can sanction using the law, hate speech and vilification, as we should. But the big bulk of this works when community members find a way to navigate their differences in a peaceful way. And of course, that is the kind of essence of what it means to have a cohesive society. And we have a lot of work to protect that and enhance it.
There are reports that the state government, and they have said that they are looking into this, limiting protests, either banning them from outside places of worship or not quite sure how this is going to work yet. But would you support that measure?
Yeah, look, my understanding is both the New South Wales and the Victorian governments are looking into this, and it is a state government matter. My personal view on this and my belief is that people should be safe to travel to and from and attend their places of worship. Places of worship are places of peace, of community, of learning. They shouldn't be harassed or impeded in doing so, regardless of your faith, regardless of whether you're visiting a church, a temple, a synagogue, a mosque. These are places of reflection, faith, and peace and community. So I think there is a merit in what the state governments are looking at. However, you've got to get the balance right because, again, as I said, people have a right to protest peacefully. That is a fundamental democratic right. I think that beyond the law is a kind of a question that people ask themselves. It's a deeper question of basic decency. Is it appropriate to do that, express yourself, and which would prevent people from being able to access their place of worship? That's a question of decency.
Peter? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yeah.
Is it sad that we need it? I mean, is that Melbourne? That we need to restrict a protest.
Well, as I said, I think the vast majority. I've seen the evidence has been the vast majority of protests have been peaceful, and that's great. And where there are a very small number of incidents where people are impeded to go to their place of worship or whether they're attacked because of their identity, that is dealt with by the law. It should be dealt with by the law. And again, it is incumbent upon not just governments, but community members, community leaders, faith leaders, multicultural leaders, sporting bodies and sporting leaders, business, academia, to set that model, to model that behaviour where we can actually disagree with each other and express ourselves peacefully, even if we disagree, and not impede or harass others based on their identity. And I think that's something that we all have to work on, and that's something that we are working on. The government can only do so much, Justin.
I want you to have a listen to this if you don't mind. Last night on Sky News, opposition leader Peter Dutton said that he would not stand in front of Aboriginal flags if he becomes the Prime Minister. But I'd like you to have a listen, Peter, if you don't mind.
We are a country united under one flag, and if we're asking people to identify with different flags, no other country does that, and we are dividing our country unnecessarily.
I wanted to get your reaction to that. Are the flags, as the special envoy for social cohesion, are flags divisive?
I mean, seriously, Justin, if Peter Dutton, who's the leader of the opposition, the alternative Prime Minister of this country, thinks the most important issue is what backdrop he has for his press conferences with everything else that's going on in this nation, I think it's ridiculous. I mean, what we're talking about here is one of the official flags of Australia, the Aboriginal flag and the Torres Strait Islander flags, which have been part of backdrops, for a long time. This is a bit of political populism that has been conducted by Peter Dutton. It's not serious. There are a whole range of very serious issues that we need to deal with. And, I will say also, it is about the importance of, the First Nations people, the work that we have to do around reconciliation. This is, and this goes to the debate around what else is necessary to do. Obviously, after the referendum, there is a lot of work to do with Indigenous Australians, and this is just populism writ large by Peter Dutton.
Thank you very much for your time. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Justin. Cheers.
Peter Khalil, a Labor MP for Northern Suburbs seat of Wills and Special Envoy for the Prime Minister for Social Cohesion. 1300 222